Hey there. Yes, it's been an exciting journey in the UK so far, and then our conversations with key figures, elements, or churches and dioceses as we are touring the Church of England keeps going on unabated. And we've come to a point where we have to enter into the Lambeth Palace. Lambeth Palace ideally is the office of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and by way of his work, he has other officers he works with. And one of that unique officers is someone who advises him on matters of the Anglican Communion. When we come back from the break, I introduced this gentleman who is 4 months in this role. And in this 4 months, conversations and things in the Anglican Communion has not been straight jacket. It's been here and there. What is his thought about it? How is he advising the Archbishop of Canterbury on these matters, and how to journey together as a church in these differences or in these times we find ourselves? It is not turbulent yet, but until it gets there, what advice are we going to listen from him as he gives them to the Archbishop Justin in his role as Archbishop of Canterbury, and also for himself too as advisor to the Archbishop on Anglican Communion Affairs? When we return from the break, I introduce my guest to you. Do stay tuned.
Adwa TV, bringing good things to life.
Announcements on Adwa TV. Contact Adwa TV for your general announcements, proclamations and publications, job vacancies, etc. at a very affordable rate. Call 050-92-57754, 020-9494-258, or visit our marketing desk at Step Work premises. Adwa TV, bringing good things to life.
Adwa TV, bringing good things to life.
Welcome back from the break. My guest for you this day is somebody who has journeyed through priesthood somewhere in Nairobi, and then he metamorphosed and grew to become the very dean of the cathedral in Nairobi. He's a staunch Anglican, married with family, and today he is celebrating, not today per se, but now he's celebrating 4 months in a row. I'm not sure he's a baby in the row, but he knows what he's about. Canon Sammy is the name. Canon, how are you doing?
Very well, Reginald.
For the sake of my cordiality with you, I would want to stick to Canon Sammy, but introduce yourself to us and the viewers. Yes.
Well, here in England, they call me Sammy, but I have been privileged to have many names, many titles like Canon, Very Reverend, Venerable, Doctor. So all those are titles that I've had, but I'm simply Sammy.
Sammy. Okay.
Sammy is 52 years now, and I came to Christ when I was about 18 in high school. I surrendered my soul to Christ, and that's where my journey of faith began. Although I grew up in the Anglican Church in Kenya, but I keep saying that being born in an Anglican church doesn't make one a Christian. To me, being a Christian is a personal decision you make. I'm a strong advocate of evangelical faith where you own the faith and you stand by it. So at 17, faith stopped being my mother and my father's faith, and it became my faith.
Personal thing.
Personal faith. And I remember the words of Paul to Timothy, I know whom I have believed, and my heart is persuaded that what I have entrusted to him, he'll keep it until the last day. To me, that is what has kept all these years. And so after high school, I later joined a theological college. I did my formational theology and got ordained. Soon after, I got priested, got married to Beatrice. We've been married. This is our 26th year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've been a clergy. This is my 28th year in ministry, and I have served in different roles and capacities in the rural parts of Kenya, in the peri-urban, urban, and the city. And in a nutshell, my life has moved from a simple evangelist, passionate for the gospel, to a priest, again with a heart to serve people, to a teacher of the word, because I've taught even in theological colleges, to a leader, now to a diplomat I am today, as an envoy of the Archbishop of Canterbury. So I've moved through the stages to who I am today. But it started when I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. At what point in time, what role and what capacity were you in before the appointment came for you to become advisor to the ABC?
I was the dean or the provost of All Saints Cathedral, Nairobi. I came to the cathedral in Nairobi in 2010. I became the deputy dean. Then after 3 years, I went through a process and I became the dean. It's a very competitive process of getting the provost of All Saints because it's a national church. All Saints Cathedral has different faces. It's like a local church, but it's also diocesan cathedral, but also the provincial cathedral. So the process of getting the senior pastor there is quite vigorous. I went through that and I served for nearly 10 years before my appointment to my current role. So I have been a dean of the cathedral in Nairobi, a cathedral of about 6,000 membership with about 15 services on a Sunday. So with a big team of clergy and laity and driving ministry from a smaller church to a very big church and investing in a very big way in terms of spirituality, discipleship, but also in terms of infrastructural development. And All Saints Cathedral has become a beacon of light, not only to Kenya, but also to the world.
Can you tell us what your new role as advisor to the Archbishop of Canterbury on Anglican Communion Affairs? Because already he's an instrument of communion. So what is your role?
As you know, there are 4 instruments of the communion. I serve one, but I must relate with these others as well. Now, the Archbishop of Canterbury, first and foremost, is the Archbishop of Canterbury. But as the Archbishop of Canterbury, he is the Archbishop of all England. But as an instrument of the communion, he is an institution. Now, that is the institution that I serve. The Archbishop has many advisors on different things. And the Archbishop is not a person per se, although the seat must be sat by a person. It's an institution. He doesn't make decisions alone, even on matters of the Anglican Communion. He uses structures that are available. For example, the Lambeth Palace, the Lambeth Conference, which is another instrument. he uses that to support him in his global work. And so he's not a pope. He is a bishop like any other bishop. He is an archbishop like any other archbishop. However, he has a global role that unites, that brings together the movement of the Anglican Church. So he's an identity of the Anglican Communion. Wherever he goes, he carries, outside of England, he carries the identity of the Anglican Church. And I think that has been an important tool to you. So my role is to advise him on all matters of the communion. Now, there are many matters that come to our desk. Some could be political, where the Archbishop of Canterbury needs to get involved. Like you remember early this year, him and the Pope and the presiding minister in the Church of Scotland were in South Sudan to broker peace. So you can see beyond the spirituality of the Anglican Church, the Archbishop is involved in myriads of other issues that affect the world. Issues to do with conflict, issues to do with issues of slave trade, global warming. All those are matters that as a global leader, he must get involved with. But also, he's involved in visiting different parts of the communion. And so, where he's not able to visit, I go on his behalf. Where he's going, I accompany him. Or sometimes he may ask me to remain to do certain work. It's more of an envoy, a diplomatic job that represents him or speaks on his behalf.
4 months in the role so far. Tell me how the role has been. How is the role treating you? How are you treating the role too?
Well, I knew the role even before I came.
Tell me about that.
Oh, you can't just come to England all the way from Kenya at a senior level without knowing what the role entails. So I knew my work will be, number one, to listen. For you to be able to advise such a person, you must be a student. You must learn. You must listen. But you must also synthesize information that you have for you to make any informed decision. My work is not to clap for the Archbishop, well done. My work is not to criticize him. My work is to reflect on what is happening. And sometimes I'm with him in a meeting and you'll see him say, Sammy, what do you think about that? And so I must be aware of the context so that I can be able to speak. And when he's asking me to speak, he's not asking me my personal view, but he's asking me, with all the information as I synthesize, what would be the advice. Sometimes it's matters of conflicts that come within the communion. Some people see him as the instrument of unity. But at the same time, there are people who see him as the instrument that divides the community because of his role locally here in England. And so my role, sometimes outside of Kenya, is to help them understand the role of the Archbishop, what is his desire, and be able to advise. One time, when I was very new in my job, I asked him, Your Grace, when will you think I have succeeded in this job? He said, the day you will help England to know or to remember they are not the only Anglican Church. That when colonialism, with all its problems, spread across the globe, it carried itself with the Anglican Church. So you must remind, whenever you have an opportunity, to remind England, think global. Don't think too local. Because anything you do here has a ripple effect on the entire global Anglican Communion. So that is one job. But on the other hand, I must also tell the communion, remember, the church in England is autonomous. They can respond to contextual challenges that they meet. But that doesn't mean they are making decision for the
entire communion.
The entire communion. I can imagine the church in Ghana responds to its contextual challenges, and the Church of England doesn't interfere. So there must be a mutual respect. There must, and I know we will talk later about the unity and the uniformity, which are very different. Some people want an Anglican church that looks the same. That will never happen. It doesn't look in any way, and I will say more later about that. So my work is to understand context, have the right information, be able to advise both the Archbishop, and sometimes I've told him, Your Grace, I don't think that will be right. Yeah, so I'm involved in many, many things. Sometimes I also deal with correspondences that are sent to the office of the Archbishop, and either I'll do that on his behalf, or I'll do it for him, and then he'll be able to endorse it or change it. So I'm also there to communicate with the primates.
Okay.
Yeah.
A very significant role you play there. I like the fact that you said that it's a reflective role. It's a role that needs to listen. You need to be a student to be in this role. Now, let me come to you on a foreword written by Archbishop Justin in the Lambeth report for 2020, last year, 2022. And in that very foreword, the Archbishop of Canterbury acknowledges the division of the Anglican Communion over same-sex issues. The decision of the Church of England's General Synod has not helped matters.
No.
Towards, in his vision, walking, listening, and sharing together. Can the Anglican Communion ever have, if I should borrow its words, visible, organic unity based on solidarity, as rightly being put by the Archbishop of Canterbury in that foreword, from where you said now?
You know, what the Archbishop of Canterbury is acknowledging in that foreword is that things cannot be uniform. Uniformity is likeness. Uniformity silences all other voices apart from one voice. And the best picture that I can paint for the Anglican Church, it's a mural. It has all the colors, all the shapes, all the languages. Everything is so different. And the moment we will learn that we are very different, that's when we will succeed. The word here is unity. The moment you think unity, you are unifying pieces, but they will not look the same. The Church of England is responding to their contextual challenges, and I live here. I know matters of human sexuality are important. There are legal matters as well. But let's also be careful not to think the whole of the Church of England supports one idea. There are sharp divisions even within the Anglican Church in England itself. You have the liberals that are pushing the agenda for same-sex union, but you also have conservatives here as well.
In the Church of England.
In the Church of England. And I want to imagine if a vote was to be done, it will split the church in England down the middle. There are people who will not want to hear about same-sex unions.
But the vote they passed recently is seeking to offer prayer.
But remember, that is only a synod. The church is bigger than a synod.
The highest decision-making body.
Yeah. But I'm saying this matter divides the church, and the church is bigger than the synod. The Church of England is not homogeneous itself. If this matter, the matter of blessing same-sex union, was not discussed as a matter of changing the doctrine. And so it required only a simple majority. If it was to change the doctrine, it will be discussed in a different motion legally. And I can tell you, it may win or it may lose. it's like a 50-50 type of discussion. And so the church is not even homogeneous itself. So the Archbishop has a very difficult job. Internally, he's dealing with his divisions. There are people who will not support him here in England.
But don't you think that that single individual having multifaceted role, sometimes his role and responsibilities locally in the context of the Church of England should at least wait to see to it that it does not affect the larger Anglican Communion per his mandate as Archbishop of Canterbury, as an institution?
Let me ask you, if the Archbishop of Canterbury was in Accra, Ghana, and he responded to problem of Islam or problem of polygamy in Ghana, would it affect the rest of the communion? Yes.
It will, because of the role he plays.
Because of the role. So it's not about England. It's about here now. Look, let me give another example. In Kenya now, we have women bishops consecrated. We even have senior clergy, women. But in some parts of West Africa, that is not acceptable.
It's yet to, but Ghana we have.
No.
Yeah.
But in most of the West Africa, it's not. If the Kenyan primate was the unifier of the Anglican Communion, and he went ahead to consecrate a woman, would that split the church? In other words, what I'm saying here, beyond the human sexuality problem, which is a context of the West, there are many, many other things that can divide the church. And that's why the biggest discussions that we are now having is how do we reinterpret the instruments of the communion.
Yes, I'm coming to that, because when you look at what has come in now, it has the notion that Global South churches, predominantly most coming from provinces in Africa, largely, and some few parts of the belt falls within the Global South, and then even conversations among what is happening in the Global North, coming into listening to conversations at Lambeth Conference, conversations at ACC 18, and even with comments coming from Archbishop Justin himself, it's taken us to a point whereby the role needs to be reviewed.
Definitely.
In your advising the Archbishop of Canterbury, what do you envisage that some of these reviews will be coming from, especially from statements that have coming from Global South?
The Global South itself, to begin with, is also divided. I've just used one example of priesthood and ordination of women as bishops. It's a divisive matter. Today, we are dealing with matters of same-sex unions. In 10 years, what shall we be dealing with as a church? So if every small matter comes, divides the church, then the church then cannot survive united. Let's not cheat ourselves that one day we will all agree on many matters.
Yes.
You see, like when there's now, I don't know whether this is happening in Ghana, the upsurge of polygamy in the African church.
The African church, yes.
It's now becoming a reality. The West will never understand that. What about you as an African? You may understand because it's a contextual matter. So there are many contextual issues even within the Global South itself. The Archbishop himself has spoken to this matter, and he has said, I will not remain as the Archbishop of Canterbury. I'm willing to relinquish that instrument. Let it be remodeled. And I've told him, Your Grace, thank you. And for me, I'm seeing a two-pronged approach. Number one is change two instruments, first of all. The ABC and the ACC, Anglican Consultative Council. Approach it from a collegial point of view. That you will form a college around the Archbishop of Canterbury. Maybe you will not call it the Archbishop of Canterbury. You may call it something different, but it's an institution that instead of one person, it will be a college of primates representing different regions. And still, it's not perfect. It will have its own limitations.
There should be a leader.
Exactly. The college will now get their president, who can be the president of the ACC as well. In other words, approaching it from different contextual approach rather than from one person. But secondly, we can't lose the historical institution of the ABC. Look, in terms of funding, who funds the work of the Archbishop of Canterbury? It is the church commissioners in England. They are the ones who fund the establishment. Our support comes from the church commissioners. Who will support that college will be the biggest challenge. Most of the global south don't even pay their subscription to this office at the Anglican Communion Office. They don't.
London, yeah.
So even as we think of creating these bodies, we must think about funding. We must think about staffing. You see, today I'm representing the Archbishop because I'm his staff. Number 3, we must think about location. Where will it be? And you realize England still plays an important role, but whether it will be here, the approach will not be the Archbishop of Canterbury. That should cease. But the Archbishop of Canterbury must be one of the primates. Whether you want to call it a revolving, a presidency, there must be an approach on how we can bring our differences to the table together. That's the advice that I've been able to give. There is a committee that is working on that called EASCOFO, and soon we'll even be meeting in Egypt in December to look at their proposal, because we want, when we meet at the primates meeting in Rome, one of the biggest discussion will be the instruments of the communion, because divisions will always be there between brothers, between sisters, between different cultures. The question of same-sex union here is tied to human rights, so it makes it very difficult. And I want to speak to my Africans. How would you feel if you would be segregated because of your color? We have suffered. We Africans have suffered.
They're still suffering.
And we are still suffering. So when it comes to human rights, you as an African, you have the identity of God, and nobody should segregate you. The same argument will be applied to people of same-sex union. Whether you believe in them or you don't, if it is a human rights matter, then it becomes very difficult even to discuss it. Why? Every human being has the right to live and to make choices. So you can't segregate. And here it's a big thing within the culture of the West. It may not be so in Africa. But let me also warn the Africans. This matter is coming. Whether you want to say it's coming from the West, it is there. While I was in Nairobi, I witnessed it. The Supreme Court of Kenya actually passed that the NGO Council cannot segregate people of the LGBTQ from being registered as an NGO. And one member of parliament went to challenge that. And again, last month, the Supreme Court of Kenya spoke into that and said, now look, that's an African country where the law is saying you can't segregate anyone. They have the right to live. If you talk to our young people, this is a matter that is very close to their heart. It is the older folks that are looking at it differently. And so, moving forward, whether we love it or not, we will find ourselves with clergy that are gay, Christians that are gay, and I met them while I was the dean, and I want to imagine they are in Accra, they are in any part of the world.
We've not found out.
No, they are there. It is because our cultures are hostile. But if we would listen, you would know you have them right. You may have your brother, you may have your cousin, they are there. What is happening in this kind of environment, it is people are not judged by their sexuality. In Africa, people are judged by their sexuality.
Beyond this, initially you hinted that so many things are likely to divide the communion. But we've come to a point where it is human sexuality that we speak much about. What should we envisage as you move into the communion affairs, as you look at the pertinent issues to advise the Archbishop of Canterbury on, as far as the Anglican Communion issues are there any elements we should gag ourselves ahead of time, ahead of the human sexuality, that we need to start preparing ourselves to? Definitely the environmental and global warming issues are affecting the communion, climate issues are affecting the communion, but beyond that, the pertinent issues we need to be wary of.
The Church of England has played an important role in the establishment of the Anglican Church across the communion. So any decision they make will send negative signals across the communion. And there are two scenarios that are likely to happen, especially now, November, we have the General Synod of the Church of England, and that's where they will be discussing about the liturgy for blessing same-sex union. If that passes, that will be the litmus test, whether the communion can sustain. There are two possible actions. Number one, the fallout. Let's prepare. We may fall out. We may have Anglican churches scattered across the globe, but they are not united. That will be a possibility. And you may see different formations starting to happen, both here in England, but also in the Anglican Communion. That will be a possibility. So prepare for such. If it happened, what shall we do? And if it happens, is forming other groupings better? Because at the end of the day, whichever group you form, you'll find yourself in a problem. Let me give you an example before I tell you the second reaction. If you look at the formation of GAFCON, and me, I've been a strong advocate of the evangelical movement in Africa especially, and I was known to be a very big advocate while I was in Nairobi. And I am still. Serving the Archbishop of Canterbury doesn't make me lose.
You from.
No, I'm still an evangelical minister. But I'm serving the communion. There are many challenges within GAFCON itself. Look, after GAFCON, what is happening? It's now forming the Global South. If you ask yourself, Global South, is it geographical? Or is it ecclesiastical or ideological? Why is Sydney there? Yes, Sydney is not in the Global South. Why is Accra there, yet it's not in the Global South? So you realize the biggest divide for me, for us in Africa, is actually the West. And it's about money and power. Africans, please note, and maybe one day you may remember, who funds GAFCON? It's the West. Who is funding Global South today? It is the West. It is money from Sydney and from America. They are the biggest funders. And so even within GAFCON itself, there's a challenge of divide. And that's why I got to the second reaction. So the first one is the collapse. The second one is people will realize what the Church of England is doing is for themselves. And they will educate their Christians to know we do not support what the Church of England is doing. but we remain one. It's like in a family. You don't run away from your family because there are problems or divisions. And I wish we would go to that second reaction, where we'll sit down, tell England, you have made your decision, we don't support it at all, and you will cease to be the center of Anglicanism. We will do it differently. And that's where Episcopal will come and be able to make our suggestions.
When you hear of conversations within the Anglican Communion, irrespective of where it's coming from, when your boss is being affected, that's an element is saying that they do not recognize him as an instrument of communion. What is your advice to the ABC on such matters?
Part of my job is to visit the communion, and I hear many things. I even meet them here in London. To some people, that is a matter of the Church of England. We are in communion, but we will not support that. So I've met primates who have said, it doesn't bother us. I have also met others that have said, the Archbishop of England was the unifier. When America, Australia, and generally the global north, or even Brazil, went into same-sex marriages, the only hope they had was the church, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who continued to hold. But according to them, he lost it in February when he started discussing about same-sex union. And some have told me, if this matter was brought to the General Synod by clergy or laity, at least...
You let it pass.
No, we would understand. But when it was brought as a proposal by the House of Bishops, as they say in Africa, the fish start rotting
from the head.
And so they felt, we've lost it, because it's the bishops and the church, the Anglican Church is led by episcopal government and but also synodically governed. And so when the bishops are the one proposing, it will sail through. And so there are people who have felt like that. And so I advise the Archbishop to accept the fact that he may not be accepted everywhere. Even me, as I go out, there are places I'm received very well. And there are places they receive me. They don't know whether to receive me as an African or to receive me as a representative of the Archbishop of Canterbury. 1 week ago, I was in Dallas in a conference for the conservative dioceses within tech. We normally think tech is liberal. No, they are conservative dioceses within, and they have their own conference. They had invited the Archbishop of Canterbury to be part of the conference. But after February, they withdrew the invitation. But they said, Sammy, we want Sammy to come. Look. So my job is an interesting one. I will be welcomed, but I will also not be welcomed, or I may be looked at suspiciously. But remember, I have my own persuasions on matters of faith, but I also want to respect the fact that there are many differences within the communion.
Is your role synonymous to the tenure of the ABC?
No.
You can be changed at any time?
My role is permanent. And so even with the change of the Archbishop's role in the next 2 years or so, I'll still be there.
Okay.
If I choose to be there.
That's fine. That's fine. Bringing our conversation to an end in more of a wrap up, what do you think, personally for you, beyond what the ABC is expecting you to do, calling your work to be fulfilled, personally, what would be your greatest fulfillment? That if you should sit in this role for, let's say, 5 years, you were the Dean of the Cathedral in Nairobi, St. Paul's, for All Saints, for almost 10 years. Just take it that probably that same template of a decade in the role as advisor on Anglican Communion Affairs to the ABC. what would be your expectation to be your greatest fulfillment at the end of the road?
If it was not for the divisions that are now bedeviling the Anglican Communion, as an evangelical Anglican minister, I would have wanted to create a very strong movement of the Anglican renewal movement, starting with the instrument of the communion, which is the Archbishop of Canterbury. Because he has a unique position. He can call everybody together. He has the resources. He has the space to do that. And he is respected across the world. And so, from that position, you can create a very strong movement of revival within the Anglican Church. One of the things that I have told the Archbishop is, don't you think you've spent too much money with the LLF? LLF is the discussions around this same-sex union. And he feels bad about it because it has been in Lambeth conferences for such a long time. He feels we've wasted time. We should have used that opportunity for evangelism, for ecumenism, to influence the politics of the world. I still believe, whether it is him as an individual or that office, or whether it is the review to have it as a college, I will be fulfilled when I see that what occupies the meetings is not about our divisions, it's about the sharing of the gospel. Because whether people are gay or heterosexual or whatever, what we all require is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that has been one of my push to the Archbishop. You will not be remembered as because of human sexuality. You should be remembered as an Archbishop who loved the Lord, who preached the gospel, and who influenced the entire church to do the same. So that will be my joy, to see a strong movement of Anglicanism, especially amongst the young people who may not understand the identity of being Anglican. I would want to see that in a big way. And the Archbishop Justin, because I know him as a person, is dynamic and gifted, and somebody who loves young people immensely.
Thank you for your time. I know our paths will cross again because of the other spaces we share beyond this. So see you in that appropriate quarters. And we are grateful for the opportunity. One, to the Lambeth Palace for opening up its doors to this very interview. We're meant to have a lot of talk. Unfortunately,
I must
visa
apologize
arrangement,
that visa arrangements messed everything. And number two, there is a lot of construction work happening at the Lambeth Palace. So you may not be able to film or show, but
that is registered.
Yes, in the next 1 year or so, we should be able to, if you are able to visit. The Archbishop would have wanted to give you a good interview. He's not there, he's out of the country, and so my apologies for that. But I want to tell the Ghanaian Church that I'm looking forward to visiting you. I met the Archbishop Cyril, the Archbishop of West Africa, and he was very happy with me. He's one of those primates that are very pro Lambeth and the support of Archbishop of Canterbury as an instrument, but also an Archbishop who is willing to see the church benefit from cross-cultural missions. And I know he would like me to connect the church in Ghana with the church in Kenya, because there's something we can share across. And I will be coming to visit, to learn, but also to share what I have from Nairobi, but also what I have from England. And I hope I'll be a blessing to you when I come next year. Otherwise, God bless you. My appeal is, let's remain united, even with all the differences that we have, because reasons for divisions are many, but that doesn't mean we are not Christians and we are not Anglicans.
Thank you, Canon Sammy. So Canon Sammy is simply referred to as Canon Sammy in the Church of England quarters and spaces. But if he was to be in Ghana, we would have to revere him much and then stick to the title, the Very Reverend Dr. Canon Sammy. A lot of titles that he wields there. In fact, he's risen through that runs over from Father to Canon to Venerable to Very Reverend to Dean. And then I look forward to probably seeing when the church in Nairobi or maybe the church in England will be favorable upon him to give him the last title that he needs now and make him bishop. So that consecration is what I look forward to attend. But until then, I'll see you when I see you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'll see you in Accra.
In Accra, yes. I look forward to it.
Yes.
Then I'll take you to a nice Ghanaian restaurant. You have a Ghanaian cuisine.
Okay.
Where you're going to eat wache, banku, or fufu.
Oh, I love fufu.
Oh, you love fufu. But this one is a different fufu from the one in Nairobi.
Okay.
So you will love it.
I look forward. But apart from food, the sharing of the gospel.
Yes.
That is at my heart. I love food, I love culture, but I want to share the gospel when I come.
The great mission.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for being part of this conversation with Canon Sammy. And then we are going to give you more of these interviews whilst we are in England. We are in the UK and in London to be specific. And this conversation should have taken place at Lambeth Palace. But unfortunately, the place is under construction. So we were graceful enough to move the advisor of the ABC on Anglican Communion Affairs to this space, the St. Andrew House at the Anglican Communion Affairs in London, to have this conversation. See you when I certainly see you. Until then, my name is Reginald Pepsimal Robertson.